Welcome to the fastest stop in town. Today on Masechtas Kesubos Daf Mem, we are going to begin on Mem Amud Aleph, about 8 lines from the top of the new Mishnah. Yisayma shnis arsa v'nis garsha. So what happens if you have a girl who is an orphan, and she had erison, and then she was divorced? So on this, Rabbi Lezer Omer ha'einis chayav b'mafata pater, that if someone was honest, this girl during this time, then he will be chayiv, which makes sense. The chiddush is when it comes to me mafata pater. Why? It says Rashi, Givandi Yisaymahi. Since this girl has no father, ukanash shalahi, therefore it doesn't go to the father; he's not alive. So therefore the kanas goes to her. Va'ichilte, and she obviously was meichel that money. The medaita nispatatoloi, the fact that she was seduced, at the end of the day, it was baratzain, and therefore for that reason, pater. Gemara Mefarish, we're going to see later on in the Gemara that we're talking about in this ars and this garsha milsachritihi v'lo ayisaimakoi, that actually this case of erison and gerushin is not necessarily linked to the case of a yisaima. So Omer Rabba, so says the Gemara, Omer Rabba bar bar Chanam Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Lezer b'shitas Rabbi Kiba Rabba Amra. Rabbi Lezer, who says this chiddush, then he makes a distinction between bima'anis and mafata by this case, is similar to the shita of Rabbi Akiva. Who's Rabbi Akiva? So we look in Rashi. Rashi says, D'omer b'masnisin narishinis arsav and garsha. If you have a woman in which, again, there was erison and then she was divorced, kanasal atzma, that she receives her kanas, v'hach nis arsav nis garsha, Rabbi Lezer, this case of our Mishnah of Rabbi Lezer, Kishit Aviha Kayim, is actually talking about a case, as we mentioned, where the father is actually alive. Vikarla Yisaima Misham Depakas Chus Amino Gabi Kanasa. The father's really alive, but we'll see that the schus of the father being able to collect the kanas has been removed. So anyway, we're going to see that Rabbi Lezer in our Mishnah is comparable to the sheet of Rabbi Akiva. Why? The Amra, he says, Yeshel Kanas, that there is a Kanas for her, Kanas al-Atzma. He says that the Kanas goes to her. Mimai, how do we know that he holds like Rabbi Akiva? Meditani is Saima, from the fact that our Mishnah mentioned this case about Yisaima, the Rebbe Lezer Omer Hoinis Chayav Mafata Pater, so Yisaima Pshita. Now, it's a double pashut. If we're talking about a Yisaima, obviously this person's gonna be pater. Why would we think that she should be able to collect the kanas for being mafata? As we already explained, she obviously did it because the fact is it was baratzon, because she was seduced, but ultimately she acquiesced. So therefore, if we're talking about a case that the father is absolutely not alive, and therefore she would be the one who would receive the kanas, so that Mishnah, our Mishnah, really wouldn't be teaching us anything. And then when Rashi says Oinis Chayiv, Bafil via Kayim, even if the father would be alive, the man would be chayav to pay for kanas. Diyasaima keritani pshit and mafata pater, well kamashmal, etc. So again, based on this diak that our Mishnah must be coming to teach us a chiddush, there's no chiddush by mafata that the man is going to be pater for kanas if in fact the father is not in the picture. Well, hakamashwan, the nairishness arsonis garsha, a woman, even if she has a father, but the fact she was engaged and then got divorced, that has the same halachic status kiyasaima, same status as a yisaima. And what is that status? Ma yisaima atzma af narishnis arsonis garshal atzma. Just like obviously yisaima, that because there's no father, she gets the kanas. So the chiddush is that even if the father is alive, but because she was already engaged and then she got divorced, so no longer does the father have the schus of the knas. Amar Rav Zera, Amar Rabba Bar Shila, Amar Rab Hamnuna, Saba, Amar Rab Ada Barava, Amar Rab Halacha Rabbi Lezer, Halach, in fact, is like our Mishnah. Kari Rabbi Lezer Tovina Techachime. He called him like the good of the wise. Rashi says Ma'usher Sheva Chachamim, that he's like the Ashrei, someone who is praised among those individuals who are wise. Okay, let's see the next Mishnah. Now, in addition to the tsar that's cause for oinus, and we already talked about there's a kanas, there's also boishas upagam. So says the Mishnah, Yesu boishas. So this is very similar to the Gemara in Bava Kama. Hakol afiha mavayish mamazbayish. There's no exact amount like kanas, no matter who the person is. It's all totally on both people. For example, if you have a Adam Bainani, a regular average guy, so his busha is going to be more than someone who's a lowly person. And yet a person who's an Adam Chashiv, that level of busha is going to be greater. Mavayish, it all depends on the chashivus of the woman who is being embarrassed. So you have to analyze and evaluate both parties. Pagam, we imagine as though she's being selling a servant in the marketplace. The financial difference between the two. And the question the Gemara asks is, well, what does that mean? Because if it's a shivcha, do you really care if your shivcha is a basul or ba'ula? That's not really a marital issue. You want to make sure that she's a good worker. You don't care if she's a basul or ba'ula. So how would there be any differential between the two? So we're just going to talk about that. Kana shavu b'chol adam. As we said, it's chamishim shekel kesef. Doesn't make any difference. It's always the same. The chol sheish lo kitzva min atayra shavu b'chol adam. Anytime there's a set amount that's found in the Torah, the general rule is it's equivalent for everyone. Ve'ema chamishim salayim rachman mikol mili. How do we know when we say it's 50 salayim that it's dafka, that's on the kanas? Maybe that's referring in general. That's the entire amount that has to be paid. Not that there's all these add-ons. Amram Zera, and we had this Gemara before, Yomru Baal Bas Malachim Chamishim Baal Bas Hedyoitis Chamishim. How is it shaykh to say that there would be no chiluk between them at all? Between a woman who is of great stature, the daughter of a king, and someone who's the daughter of a simple person. It would be hard to imagine they should get the same. You could say the same thing when it comes to a servant. Eved Nike Margolis Shleishim, Eved Oisa, as we continue to Memo and Beis, Masa Machat Shleishim. How could you say that? When it comes to an Eved, says Rashi, Shenakol Shor, that if an ox gores and kills that Eved, so there is a specific amount. The Torah says you have to pay 30 shkolim, and that's it. Now the question is, shouldn't it make sense, based on the same logic, that you should have to analyze and evaluate exactly how much this Eved is worth? You could have one that is a diamond cutter, or you can have someone all they do is a very simple action, which the Gemara in Kedushin says is someone who sews. That's something which is not such a great talent, and that for that person's value and what he's able to bring to the table is less. But we don't make a difference there, so maybe we don't make a difference here either. Let's say you have two people, and he says this is logical. It has to be that it's not part of the 50. Why? Because you have two people. One was boil her kadarka, one shalo kadarka. Yamr bal shalema chamishim bal paguma chamishim. Why would you think that they should end up having to pay the same amount? Well, chayra, you would think that there should be distinctions, even though it's true that we say mishka ve'isha, that we compare bia shul kadarka to bia, but the reality is there are different acts, and therefore chayra, we should be counting the pagam aspect as well. Let's say the same thing there. If in fact we want to make distinctions, you should make a distinction by an Eved as well. We don't, so maybe here we don't either. Elmer Rabbi, Elmer Kron, this is the Gemara this is the Maskana, which we had before in Daf Lamed Gimel. Elmer Kra, Tachas Asher Ino. So Hani Tachas Asher Ino Mechla Deika Boishes Begam. So the fact that it says that you have to pay this, the 50 kesef, because of that which you afflicted her, mashma that's not part of the equation. The bosh become is not part of the equation. Rabbi, I remember isha shaykh hanara chamishim kesev hanas shchiva nun machal the ikaboishes begam. So again, the pasuk is indicating that it's specific to a certain act, a certain part of the act, and that's only limited to, in this case, the hana. However, there's also boishes begam that you caused. Ve'ema ledida. So the question is, how do we know that the father has any rights to it? Maybe it should go to her. So what do we learn out from that pasuk? And that's going to Kedushin as well. Begin with Sechta. Kol shvach nereha li'aviyah. All, and this is really regarding to Nidarim. Nonetheless, we can still derive from this pasuk that all benefits that go to the naira will actually go to the father. How do I know that all of the actions of the handiwork of the girl goes to the father? Just like a maidservant, obviously everything goes to the master. So why do you need this pasuk? Why don't you just learn it out beferish from that other pasuk with Rabbi Savia? Ella hahiba fars nadarim hudichsev. The reason why you can't learn that out from Rabbi Savia is because that's only talking about hafars nadarim, that the father has rights to annul her vow. So therefore, that's the question is. So we actually now see from that pasuk that you can't learn it out from Rabbi Savia. So how do you know? Just because the father is able to remove nadarim, who says that he should get the money? As we know, we can't learn out mammon from Isser. They're two totally separate categories. So maybe when it comes to Nadarim, he could be made for Nadarim. B'lav davka, does he get the money? So maybe we should learn out from Kanas. The fact is, we know beferish that the father gets the Kanas for honest nafata. So therefore, all other shvach mammon of the nair should go to the father. Whereas it said you can't do that. You can't learn out from kanas. Kanas is not the same thing as mammon. Mammon is this is what you damage. This is what you need to be paying back. However, kanas is a penalty above and beyond. So just because maybe he gets the kanas doesn't mean necessarily he'll get the mammon. El Mustabra, says the Maskana Gemara, Diavia Havi. It's logical, probably, that the father should be able to be entitled to the Baishas Begam. And here's the answer. Because he could always have given her over to me, Mekadesh her, with Bia, to a man who was repulsive, who was a Mukashchin. And therefore, because the father is Zayche, we already know, to the Kedushi Kesef, that when a man gives this kedushin, he has to give her kesef, let's say. So in that situation, it goes to the father, and therefore he could have always had her given over to a mukashchin, and therefore he would have been entitled to that money. This is why, again, question 14. And the answer is Mistabra Leavia, the boy Masalum Nubamashchin. Pagam Rain Aisu Kiluhi Shivcha Nimkeres. So we said, Hey Hasheminla, how do we evaluate this? So Amravua de Shmuel, Oimdin we assess, Kama Adam writes a litin bin Shivcha Besula Shivcha Beula. We would evaluate how much would a person want to pay for a Shivcha who is a virgin and one who's not. Was Shamshai, in order to serve him, Shivcha Beula, Shamshai, my nafgalemina. Who cares? What's the difference between Besula Beula? If she's a good worker, she's a good worker. Ela ben shivcha beula l'shivcha she'ena beula v'asiel avdai. Do you want to give her over to your eved? And obviously for having children, again, l'avdo my nafkali mina. Why does your eved really care? What is the real difference? Why would he why would there be any hakpada for the master? The whole purpose for them to have children, so she could have children if she was a basula or she was a buula. So be'eved sheish lo rabba karis ruach imanu. We're talking about a situation where the eved has a very close relationship with the master, and therefore the master wants him, as Rashi says, that he really wants him to be able to have married a basula, and therefore it's something which is more dear to him because he cares very much about his eved, and therefore for that reason there actually would be a financial discrepancy between them. Question TA 24. Heich pog shomin pagam. How do we evaluate pagam? So as we just said, Roin kama adam roitz alitin ben shivcha basula shivcha beula lasil le'eved sheish l'rabbi kodes ruach himanu. Those TA 24. Okay, we just mark this down. TA 24. Ben shivcha beula shivcha she'ina beula lasil avdai sheish l'rabbi kodes ruach himanu. Okay, TB 26. Boishas upagam the oinis mafata lumi nice and manolan. So this word he had. Again, Mistaber de Avia de Eboy Masil Manubal Mukashkin. That was TB 26, which was an identical question to question 14. TB 26. So I'll just mark that down. And now let's see the next Mishnah on this daf. Koil Makoim Sheish Mecher Ein Kanas. Anytime that it's shayach, and this is going to go all the way back to Chavtas, the beginning of this parak, any time in which there is the ability that the father can sell his daughter while she's, for example, or not for example, exactly when she's a katana, in kanas. So there's no din kanas, because there's no kanas for a katana. And therefore, v'chol makom sheish kanas ein mecher. If, let's say, there is kanas, namely when she's a naira, you can no longer sell her. So according to this, you're only able to sell your daughter davka when she's a katana. However, when she becomes the age of a naira, when she's 12 years old in one day, you no longer have the ability to sell her. Katana yesh lo mecher ve'ein lo kanas, because a katana you could sell, but there's no kanas. Naira yesh lo kanas ve'ein lo mecher, which again is very similar to what we just said. And then hobageris, once it grows 12 and a half, ein lo mecher lo kanas. Not only can you not sell her, you couldn't sell her all the way when she was a katana, but also naira not as well. Only in naira there's a din kanas. So again, this is according to the shita that when it comes to only between 12 and 12 and a half is the din of kanas. And again, this is all as we've spent a significant amount of time discussing on Daf Chav Test. This is what Rameir says. Actually, it's possible that both could take place while she's a katana. From a time a girl is a day old, until she's 12 and a day, you can sell her, and there's no din kanas, which is what we said before. Cyrus, when she's 12 years old, when she shows two signs, two hairs, so this is Rameir, our Mishnah, that he has this narrow window that you could only, there's only din kanas between 12 and 12 and a half, which is a naira. Rameir oimer kol makom sheish mecher in kanas or kol makom sheish kanas in mecher. However, chacham omer no katana mebas gimel shana b'yom echad. From the time a girl is 3 years old, the ad sheti bagir until she's 12 and a half, yeshul kanas. There's a din kanas. Kanas in mecher lo. You tell me you can't sell her when she's a katana? Everyone holds that. Im af kanas b'makam mecher. So this chiddush is that not only is there the ability to sell your daughter when she's a katana, but also there's a din kanas for a girl who's a katana. My time to Rameir. So why does Rameir say davka as a naira there's a kanas? Because Isha, that she will be, and this is referring to kanas. It says words lo Isha, midahava atzma hakasa medaber. So says Rashi, "B'mi sheyesh biyadol lahaknos atzma." Well, ishus kasmadav. This is someone who is shaykh to be able to marry themselves off, which is obviously referring to that she's already a naira, because a katana has no ability, she has no yad to be able to do that. Rabbanan Amr, and the Rabbanan say that Reish Lakish, that's what it normally means. Rabbanan Amr Reish Lakish Amr Kra could also be Ratzal Leimer. Amr Kra Naira. So the pasuk says Naira afil katana b'mashma. This is unbelievable. It says Naira. Actually, if you look in the Haggai Sabach, it's written without a hey. And this is actually one of the interesting Balkari potential mistakes, but people know this, is that even though there's no hey, it's Naira, it's not Nar. So it's actually written without a hey. So why is it written without a hey? Afil katana b'mashma. So perhaps that's the diuk. The fact that it doesn't have a hey, if it would be Naira only that time, it would be written that way. The fact that it's missing a hey means even someone who's not yet a Naira, she's missing from being a Naira. So the din is that also there's kanas. So Shamu Rav Papa Bereda Rav Chanan Rabbi Chaloichis Ozal Amro Kemed Rav Shimi Barashi. So they went in front of Rav Shimi Barashi to share this. Amalei Atoin Ahamas Nisula. You learn it out that way. However, Anan Ahamas Nisula. We learn the following. Amrish Lakish. It's got to be Rish Lakish. Hamaiti Shemer al Katana Potter. The din is, if a person is Maiti Shemra about a katana, so we were talking about a kanas, so this is saying if you're Maiti Shemra, if you end up marrying a katana, and you end up saying that she was not a basula, and it turns out it wasn't true, so you're chayiv to pay, because you're saying, you said that she doesn't have basulim, so the din is that you're that potter. Shnemar benasnul avi hanaira, that you have to give the avi hanaira the money. Naira moli dir hakosov. There it says it with a hey. So it's coming to tell you that it's davka, a naira, that you have to pay for moitzi shemra. However, not when it comes to the case of our Gemara, which we're talking about kanas. We're talking about oines mafata. There's no din kanas on a pomfakert. That it's not just by a naira when it comes to kanas, it's even when she's a katana. The fact is, because it says it with a hey, holav hachi, if it was without a hey, havamina fil katana, then you would think it's telling you even a katana there's a din of you be chai from moitzi shemra. V'aksiv im emes haya davar hazev was true when nimsa basulam and naira, and it turns out that she was not in fact a basula, and we have witnesses that she had relations and committed adultery. So we're going to take this girl, uskalua, and we're going to have her sentenced to death. What do you mean? She's not a basainchin. How are you able to sentence a katana to death? If the pasuk and this whole parsha is talking not only about a naira, even about a katana, then how can you establish that the whole situation could possibly be that she'll be sentenced to death? Misa b'di'adam. There's no misa b'di'adam for katana. Elokan naira. Rather, over here it says naira. Hakol makam shener naira. When it says it without a hey, afil katana b'mashma. It's coming to include everyone. So basically, we're not saying anything different, but we're basically explaining. It's not coming to megala what this is, but rather just push it. Anytime it says naira, it's chaser a hey, it's missing the hey. So in that situation, push it in that situation, it means even a katana, and that's the reason why it's also a katana. There's a din kanas. However, in this case, you're right. It says naira with a hey. That's the din. The din is it's a naira only. It can't be talking about a katana because katana there would not be punished. Okay. Let's see if there's any questions on this. Adkan.